Welcome back to the Yoga Chat. I'm your host, Montana.
I'm your host, May. One day I'll say that in a normal way.
I don't want you ever to say it in a normal way. So
I guess my
today,
authentic self is just not normal.
which is great, I wouldn't want you any other way. We're going to talk about authenticity. But before we talk about authenticity and being authentic, May got to come on her first retreat this weekend in
I
Ohio,
did.
which was really awesome. So I was so happy you were there. And yeah, what'd you think? Be
I
honest.
had a
Tell me
blast.
everything you hated. Just kidding.
I didn't hate any of it. I mean, you know what's funny? The yoga was great, obviously. Like I loved getting up every morning and the first thing we did was move and sweat. And to me, and this sounds really weird, the best part was just that like someone had all of my food prepared for me all weekend long. And
Yeah.
like I'm sure most of the people there that are, I mean, I guess anybody really, but like especially if you're like a mom or a caretaker and you're just like used to being the person that gets all the food on the table and prepares all the snacks and the meals, it was like so nice to just like
Yeah.
have all of that, and everything was so good. Um, that was just like a really wonderful part. Like even when we go on vacation, you know, you rent a big house, you have to still you cook big meals for the families and like clean up and do, you know, the grocery shopping. So I've just never been on like as an adult, I've never been on a vacation slash anywhere where I just like literally got to do whatever I wanted all day.
That just made me think of the very when May first got there, it was like 5 p.m. and I was like, May, should we drink an espresso? And she was like, fuck yeah, we should. And I was like, and she did this like crazy dance. And then we
At
walked
first,
over
I
to,
asked if we were allowed
yeah.
because
She's like, are you sure we're allowed to be doing this? And I was like, yeah, yeah, we can make coffee whenever we want. And she was like, oh, right, we're adults.
we're
We can
adults.
do what
I
we
paid to
want.
be here. I
Yeah,
could
I
make a
paid to be
coffee.
here. Yeah. No, I agree. I think too, another thing that I take for granted or I don't realize is so hard until I don't have to do it is the choice. Like, even if I want to cook, I'm like, what am I going to cook? Or even if you're going to dinner, it's like, where are we going to go to dinner? What am I
Mhm.
going to pick on the menu? And so not having to choose is like the
No
greatest
thought.
thing. Yes. And Nicole Barley, who is on the podcast Charm Shop, our Oracle card reading butterfly.
Butterfly.
I'll have to look up what episode that was, but she's the chef and all the vegetarian meals, so fresh, so colorful. I think that was a big part of it too. Like it was aesthetically beautiful,
Mhm.
so delicious. What was your favorite meal?
Honestly, I really, really liked them both, but I love like Asian inspired food. So the
Yeah,
tofu with the peanut sauce and the rice and the cucumber salad. Oh my God.
that was my
I've been
favorite.
thinking about it. I actually went grocery shopping today and I picked up some tofu and
Mm,
I'm trying to recreate that meal because it was spectacular.
so
But
good.
yeah, it was like you said, like there was no thinking involved. I didn't even have to like choose. I didn't have to decide what is everyone going to eat for dinner tonight. Let me
Yeah.
make a recipe. Let me pick up the ingredients. It was just like, here, eat this. And I was like, gladly.
Yeah.
I will eat
So
whatever
nice.
you put on this table, I will eat it and I'll be happy. And that was the good part is just like she thought of everything. Like
Yeah.
all of the sides and the sauces and the garnishes and like mm, I would go
And
back
I
again
agree.
literally just for the food.
Yeah. That honestly, when she hears this, it's gonna make her feel so good.
Good. It was nourishing and like, you know, you feel like taken care of when someone's doing that stuff for you. And I'm not saying that like, you know, people don't ever cook for me, but to spend
Yeah.
almost 48 hours just getting fed and taught yoga was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Essentially, it was two dinners, two breakfasts, and a lunch. So two
Mhm.
or 5 meals. 5 meals. You don't have
5
to think
meals.
about.
5 meals, 4 yoga classes, some meditation, some journaling, some pool hanging, an
Sauna,
ice
cold
dunk,
plunge. Yeah.
ice dunk and a sauna, and that was fun because like that was really fun because everybody got to come up with their own like hype song, and we all chose the song early in the morning. And then when we got to starting to dunk, Sam, who also was on the yoga chat episode 2,
Yes.
she chose this like ratchet rap song, and everybody
ASAP
else chose
Rocky.
like a bunch of different stuff. And as she was in there, everybody was getting so hyped that they all changed their songs to like rap. And so
Yeah,
we were all just balling out, dunking in ice, rapping Kanye and fucking Nicki Minaj. It was great. I had so much fun.
me too. I know. Whenever we were leaving, we were on the phone. May and I were on the phone because I passed May and Sam, and because they stopped at a dispensary. As soon as I saw Sam's car, I was like, I know the only reason I'm catching up to them is because they stopped at a dispensary. I know
We
it.
sure
I
did.
was right. But I was like, I feel so happy and so sad, and like I don't want to leave, but I'm ready to go home. And I'm like energized, but I'm exhausted. And it's just like all these conflicting emotions after a retreat. It's like you're so grateful that it happened and you're so sad that it's over, but you're also ready to start back into what's next and blah, 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 blah. So I went to bed.
I could have stayed longer.
Oh, for sure.
Especially if I had my own room, because me and Sam, when we booked, we thought we were booking a room with 2 queen beds, but we were booking a room with 1 queen bed. So me and her were just like ass to ass sleeping in that bed, and she fucking thrashes around. Like at one point I just started giggling and she's like, "What?" I was like, "Are you having a seizure? What the fuck is wrong with you?" And she's like, "I need to nest and get comfy before I can fall asleep." And I was
I
like, "Oh
feel
my
like
god."
I feel like that's like the only off-brand thing I've ever heard about Sam is that she
She
doesn't. I feel
thrashes
like
in her sleep.
what would be on brand is she just like lays there and is
Lays
like that.
still stoically and falls
Yeah,
asleep in under 30 seconds without any problems.
yeah, exactly.
I kind of thought the same. So I was like, "Oh, look, you're human. You do some fucked up
Yeah.
shit too." It
Uh,
was fun. It was really fun.
I came home and went to lunch with Matt, and then at 4:45 was like, "Hey Matt, will you come tuck me in?" He's like, what?" And I was like, "Just for a nap." And he's like, "Okay." And then I woke up at like 10:30 and I was like, "Oh, I guess
Oh,
I'm
you fucked
back to
yourself.
No, 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 I went right back to sleep. So I
You kept
essentially
sleeping. Oh,
I
wow.
went to bed at 4:45 and I woke up the next morning at like 6:30. So that's what,
Okay.
13, 14 hours of sleep.
Probably
I didn't
rested AF.
Yeah, today in my sculpt class, which was really fun, I got super creative with bands. I got inspired by House of Balls, which sounds so funny, but it might be House of Bali, but anyways, it's this
All I picture is a
House of
bunch of
Bells.
testicles.
I
I
think it's
picture testicles
House of
just hanging from a ceiling, like
House of
punching
Balls.
bags.
It's not House of Balls. I think it's House of Bells, and it's like kettlebells.
Okay. That makes
I
more
can't
sense.
really, but of course we talk about balls on here on accident. Anyways, she is really inspiring. She's got some cool stuff. And afterward, our friend Amanda Wilkerson was like, "That was really like I can tell that you're like rejuvenated and like rested and like ready from the retreat." And I'm like, "Yeah, and I'm gonna go fuck it all up this weekend on the bachelorette party." So
Yeah,
see you next
the opposite
Tuesday.
vibe.
Yeah.
You're gonna trash your body and probably not exercise very much at all.
I'm teaching one yoga class. That'll be fun. But
Oh, yeah.
other than that, no, there's going to be no exercising. I thought for a second, like, maybe I should bring like my running shoes. And then I was like, no, bitch, you're not fucking running in Cabo. Just don't even kid
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah,
I'm not
just
that girl. I'm
relax,
not.
enjoy yourself.
Yeah. So it'll be
I'm
good.
that girl depending on who I'm with. Like, if I'm with a bunch of people who are eager to, like,
For
do
that.
yoga on vacation, I will happily teach a yoga class no matter what, but, like, if I'm with, like, my family, for instance, like, they're not workout on vacation people, so if I'm the only one that has to motivate myself to go do something, like, I'm not fucking doing it.
I agree with that 100%. That's so
Yeah.
accurate.
That's why I
Yes.
also really liked the retreat is, like, everybody was like, "Let's do yoga." Like, I mean, obviously, everyone was there for the same reasons, and it was just
Yeah.
it was like a good environment. It was good people, good food, good movement. It was wonderful.
So are you excited to double that in Tulum in all aspects?
I am, especially because in Tulum, I think I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have my own bed,
You are.
and I am going to thrash around and starfish on that bed all week. It's
And
gonna
they're
be great.
really big beds too. Like they feel like
Mm,
bigger, I think, what we're
I
used
will
to. And
take
your
it.
roommate you're going to love your roommate so much. You guys
Oh,
are
you
going to
keep
be
talking her up. I should probably go take her Zenergy class, like, before we
do
go,
it.
just be like, "Hey, I don't know if you know me, but we're gonna be sharing a room."
Yeah.
and I
She's so
promise I
mom.
won't fart in my sleep.
Yeah, that's you guys are gonna love each other. She's great. Okay, so May, what are your thoughts on authenticity?
Well, that's funny because I feel like this we touched on this a little bit over the weekend. We had like a journal prompt where Catherine had us do a little exercise on like what our values are in this moment, not like as a whole in our life as a person forever and ever and ever, but like what means a lot to us right now. And and in the first segment we like wrote down a list of values, and then she kind of like had us go through those values and like lump some of them together in like something that like umbrellas it. So like on the first round, I put down honesty, authenticity, um, you know, silliness, and then I kind of like umbrellaed that all as like emotional maturity. Well, not the silliness part, but basically emotional maturity is like, in my opinion, the ability to be yourself, the ability to have difficult conversations, the ability to tell the truth even when it's really, really hard, and
Yeah,
the ability to just like show up as you are in any given scenario as the same person, regardless of how you're going to be received. So, like, right, exactly. And it's
totally.
hard because,
For
like, I
those of you that
think
don't know, I just looked at May and went
she
and
pointed at me
pointed
with
at her.
finger guns because that's the fucking juice.
That's the juice.
Um, so, and it's hard to do, like, no matter who you are. I think, as you get older, it becomes a little bit easier just because you sort of fall into these groups of friends that you've had for longer. So you're comfortable in them, they know who you are. And I think as you get older in general, you find it easier to be yourself and you find it less daunting to please people or make them like you. And if anybody doesn't like you, then it's just like, okay, well, hey, whatever. I've
Yeah,
survived this long with people not liking me. And like at this point, I have plenty of people who are supportive of me. I have a lot of groups of friends in different parts of my life that like, and you could put me in a situation with any one of them, and I would always be myself.
yeah,
And I feel like that kind of well, not kind of, like really um transfers over into teaching yoga
yeah,
and being
totally.
even a yoga student, because like if you show up to a yoga class and you're dying inside that day and the woman next to you is contorting herself into a pretzel and you're feeling like you want to not take eagle arms and just wrap your hands around your shoulders, but you take eagle arms even though you're dying because the lady next to you is doing it, in a very micro sense you're not being authentic because
Yeah,
you don't want to do that and you're doing it because of how you're afraid you're going to be perceived if you don't. So I think authenticity in yoga teaching and your yoga practice is pretty much everything because you're there to learn about yourself. And the only way you can learn about yourself is to be honest with yourself. And if you're there to impress the person next to you who you don't even know by taking eagle arms when you feel like you don't want to take eagle arms, then you're doing it wrong.
yeah.
Period.
Exactly. And that's like a perfect way of saying, like May and I were talking about a quote before this, a phrase of like, if everybody likes you, you're doing it wrong. And May was like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And what you just explained was essentially like the essence of how I hear that phrase. That phrase just makes it sound like how like May described it as like people don't like me because I think I'm better than them. And that's like that the way that that phrase, like we talk a lot about language, and that
Right.
phrase has like a connotation, feeling,
Yes.
energy, vibe around it of like entitlement or like, um, what's the word? Like pretentiousness almost.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and it's like exactly what you just said is more along the lines of like what I agree with, not the like, fuck everyone. This is
Right.
me. I'm gonna
This
live it.
is me. Yeah.
And I think
The way you're doing that is exactly what I picture. Like, because I
good.
know we've all known those people that are like, well, whatever. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. And so
And then it's
everyone's gonna
like
think I'm whatever. It's like,
almost like it's a horrible excuse for really bad behavior. And
yes,
that's not what that's not authenticity. That's a
right.
horrible excuse for bad behavior.
Bingo.
Um, and I think that you kind of what you also said, which really shifts the narrative from being like, fuck it all, take it or leave it, to like I'm gonna be me, and some people are gonna like that and some people aren't,
Right.
is learning how to not focus on the people that aren't picking up what you're putting down, and instead, like you said, to focus on all the people that, like, do love you and that do respect you, and that even if it's like, like, I had a really hard conversation with a mentor a few weeks ago, and they were basically just like holding up a mirror, and they were just like, "You're saying this, and I know that you don't mean this, but this is how it could come off to some people." And, like, that is a perfect example of, like, someone telling me, holding a mirror up in an effort to support me in my growth because they love me,
Yeah.
not because they're, like, nitpicking or being like, "I don't
Yeah.
agree with you," or
Right.
"Ugh, you did this wrong," or "I hate that person," or blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's more like, "I love you so much that I'm gonna
Right.
point this out because it's an opportunity for growth." And it's not easy, obviously, but it's like,
No, it's really, really hard, but I agree with you. I just it's something smaller, well, not smaller, but it's similar with like with a friend of mine right now. Like she's going through something that's very hard. It's a big life-changing thing. And, I and other people that are in our group of friends are, it's either like blind support, like you're right, they're wrong, always, always. But for me, if I am in a situation where a friend of mine is seeing me and thinks that I'm doing something that isn't serving me, and as hard as it is for me to hear, I want them to tell me. Like,
yeah,
I might not like it in the moment. It might hurt my feelings. I might feel really horrible to listen to it, but like, I think they're doing more good for me in the long run to tell me the truth. And not even, it doesn't even, and that's the thing that I think people struggle with is like, people think communicating is an argument, and communicating is doesn't have to be an argument. If it's two people that like really care about each other and want to like grow as two people together and also as people on their own, like they can have hard conversations and like they
it
will
should
both
be.
come out better.
Yeah. And that's like something that I thought a lot about when I was having this conversation. I was like, oh my God, I've ruined it. Like this relationship is ruined, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought,
Yeah.
like, no, think about all the hard conversations that Matt, my husband, and I have had to have over the years
Yeah.
in order to grow closer and come to a compromise, like a happy medium, a middle ground. Like, because we're not all going to agree on everything 100% of the
No, never.
if you let something go and brush it under the rug, like I think that that's totally fine in some situations, but for me personally, that's what like differentiates the people that I like consider an acquaintance versus someone that I'm like, no, I really care about this person. I care about this relationship. So I'm going to bring this up because I want to continue further and like get
Mhm.
deeper rather than like just keep it this surface level of acquaintance. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong, but it just differentiates like the relationship.
Yeah, I think that comes back to just the idea of emotional maturity, like and it's not necessarily anybody's fault if, depending on how we grew up or our family systems or
Yeah.
relationships we've had where we have felt, too afraid to say what's true or what's real to us in fear of how the person might receive it. Like that's not emotional maturity. Emotional maturity is like being able to say the hard thing, it's being able to listen to the hard thing, and it's being able to like grow from it rather than take it personally and start to
Yeah.
like resent the person that's talking to you about it. And to me, at
Yeah.
this point in my life, like I was just thinking about values and like I really value people that can be honest with me even when I don't want to hear it, and people that can listen to me being honest with them even if they don't want to hear it. And that like it's not a friendship ender, it's not like a relationship ender, it's like a growing experience. It's like you get closer with the person after
Yeah.
because they can hear what's true to you and they know you can hear what's true to them and that you're not going to walk away from them after that. So that idea that I like one of the values, the emotional maturity, I feel like it just encompasses so many things. It encompasses honesty, authenticity, safety, like communication.
Trust.
It's like all of the things. And
Yeah.
so, like, yeah, coming back to authenticity in general and emotional maturity, like as a person, I thought of this um metaphor the other day when I was thinking about a theme for my power class this week, which is just like when you want to get to know somebody else better, or when you want to strengthen a bond with somebody, you spend quality time with them, right? And you ask them questions and you're listening to them, you're looking at their face and you see what they're thinking and feeling, and you can absorb, all of the things that helps you get to know them better. And yoga, like your yoga mat, is that place where you can do that with yourself. Like,
Mhm.
there's no screens, there's no bullshit, there's no distractions. You are 100% in it with yourself. It's like quality time. What's going on in your head? You can't turn it off because you're not distracted. You can't turn off the physical sensations that come up. You can't, it's just like you are
Right.
forced to fucking listen to your shit. And there
Yeah.
aren't many times of the day when you have the ability to do that. So,
Yeah.
like, don't take eagle arms if you don't want to take eagle arms. Don't fucking sit lower in chair pose if your legs are sore and you don't want to. Like, that's authenticity. That's like honesty. That's communication with yourself and trusting yourself. And then not only like trusting yourself, but being brave enough to give yourself what it is that you need.
Yeah.
So that all, that's just been coming up for me a lot lately in general, is just like, I think honesty is just really like such a treasured idea that people find really, really hard. And I that goes for with other people, but like mostly for ourselves, like, you can convince yourself of a lot of things that might not be true. But I think when you start to practice yoga regularly, a lot of those truths, like, they slap you right in the face.
Can't hide from them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you touched on too, it's the same thing and so important when it comes to being a yoga teacher or a facilitator of any kind. Like as soon as you're trying to be something instead of just being who you are and what you are, it's like so obvious. Even if you can't
Hmm.
like someone can't be like, "Oh, they're trying too hard." Something's
You can feel it.
off. Yeah, you can feel it, especially whenever for someone like, and I don't mean to toot our horns, beep beep, but like I can say this confidently about myself. Of course, there are moments where this isn't 100% true, and I can say this confidently about you too, May, that like authenticity is also one of my pillars, and whether it's like the word of authenticity itself, or it's like this weekend expansion was a word that like authenticity fell under in the way that I
Hmm.
was saying it. Like I growing up was so quote unquote authentic. I'm putting bunny ears here because I didn't understand, kind of going back to like the pretentious phrase that we brought up. Like I was almost so authentic that it was like over to the other side. And my mom had to spend years trying to like help me understand that like authenticity isn't the same as like rebellion.
Hmm.
Um, and when where I'm getting at with all of this is that like when someone is authentic and they are truly living in their unique energy, when someone isn't being authentic, it's even more highlighted. So like
Oh,
I'm
yes.
not saying I'm 100% in my own energy 100% of the time,
I don't think
but
anyone is.
no, it would be impossible,
It's
right?
very hard.
But when I'm like really in it, it's like so much more obvious when someone else isn't. I think it goes for
Yeah.
anything. And then when
Sure.
I'm not, I'm sure it's like it goes both ways. Other people are like, I mean, even this is a silly example, but it just came to mind. And I love this example. I give it all the time. May came to one of my outdoor classes. I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast. I was late because of traffic. There were fucking bumblebees everywhere. The iPad was not near me and my playlist shuffled and it was just fucking horrible. It was one of the worst classes ever. I was so annoyed. And afterward, May was like, do you want me to give you feedback? And I was like, no, May, I don't want feedback. And she's like, why did you say option to destabilize your posture? What do you want me to do? Fall? And she said, it just sounds like you're trying to be Zach Armstrong. And Zach Armstrong is a master trainer, a senior master trainer at Yoga Six. And she was like, you don't have to be Zach Armstrong. You can just be Montana. It's fine. And I was like, also, going back, like this is a silly example, but it also ties into what we were just talking about of like, even though I did not want to hear it, like I needed to hear it in that moment, even if the reason I needed to hear it in that moment was so that it is something that can like land in my heart and on my heart as a story that I think of often and that I tell often as an example of like when you're not being yourself, it's obvious.
Yeah.
even if it's just as simple as saying to destabilize your posture. I can't even get that out. It's like
I'll
it's
never
like
forget it because we were in a crescent lunge twist, and when you said that, I was like, "Does this bitch want me to fall out of this? Like, what does that mean?" And I've never heard you say anything like that, and I think it's when you were going through the 300
it
hour,
was.
which now I understand because I'm going through the 300 hour, and I find shit falling out of my mouth, and I'm like, "That's not something I say," but I'm
I'm
saying it
trying
now
new
because I'm
things.
in my head, and
Yeah.
so I get it. Like, I totally get it because, like, when you're challenged to grow, you really question where you already are. As
Yeah.
sure of myself as I could possibly be as like someone who can lead a yoga class safely and inclusively and like, I am confident in that. I've done it over 1,000 times now. I am so in my head learning all of this new information. I know that's part of the process and it's like a good thing. But like it goes to show like when you're feeling any sense of insecurity or out of your element, like it's really easy to go to a place where you're like not actually being yourself. And
Yeah.
so it's not like a thing where like I'm authentic all the time. Like I'm not. Nobody is. It's impossible. Like you can be
Yeah.
mostly authentic most of the time, but in situations where you're uncomfortable or you're insecure or you're like out of your element, it's really easy to go to a place where like you're not actually being yourself.
Yeah.
And so, it's an ever going thing and it's not like we're not trying to lecture people about authenticity, but
I
like
know.
it's just one of those things where when you attend a yoga class or any kind of, you know, fitness class, in my opinion, I think sometimes the big difference between leaving there feeling like you've had a really great experience and leaving there feeling like, I'm not so sure, it has a lot to do with whether or not the teacher was teaching from a place of honesty and like authenticity versus a teacher who was just like spouting off a bunch of shit they heard other people say. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And that all of that made me think too, like, of course, like that's a great point. No, we're not trying to lecture anyone on authenticity. And if you go to a teacher's class and you're like, that didn't feel like they were being honest, like I've taught classes, not just cues, like the example we just gave, but full classes that were like not me and not
Yeah.
honest. And the reason why is never because I blatantly or intentionally was trying to be someone else, but it's because it's this phrase that comes around a lot in the 300 hour is if you're not feeling anything, nothing's changing. So I think this is another thing that like shows up as a teacher, as a student, as a human being, that in order to figure out who you really are, you have to try different things on. And so while
Mhm.
you're trying one thing on, you might recognize like, oh, that doesn't fit. I'm going to try
Yeah.
something else. And so like the intention behind it might truly be like, I'm going to try this thing on to find my authentic voice. And
Right.
then someone recognizes you doing that. And then it's like, I'm writing her off. That was
Mhm.
honest. And then it's like, no, no,
Right.
no. That teacher might have been intentionally trying something new. And then through that experience realized, oh,
It's
wait,
not for them.
that's not me.
Yeah.
And the only way you can learn that is through direct experience and
Yeah.
really seeing if the shirt fits.
I
Um,
totally agree with you. I've been to that point like a lot where like, you know, I like to crack jokes in class and keep it light and then I'll go through periods of time where I'm like, well, I don't want to be the clown teacher, so I'm going to try to be more serious. And then like I feel so stiff and like
yeah,
not me. But why did I do that? No fucking clue. Because I felt insecure about something, because
feel
I felt
something different,
unsure about something. And so that's just part of the fucking human
human.
experience. And
Yeah.
no matter what you do or where you're doing it, you're always going to have that little voice in your head that's like, you should do it differently. This might be working, but why don't you try this? And it's like, okay, I'll try that. And then it's either gonna, someone's gonna leave there and be like, that woman was a nightmare and couldn't bear to listen to her voice, or they'll like the seriousness and then they're gonna come back and I'll be funny May that day and they're gonna be like, who the fuck is this clown? So it's just kind of like, what do you do? Try your
Exactly.
best. That's all you can do.
All you can do. And like come from a place of like, come from a place of I don't mean to like sound like a broken record, even though May's the one who's been talking a lot about this, like come from a place, an honest place, whether that
Yeah.
place, like that's it, that's the overarching idea is that like as long as you're coming from an honest place and a kind place and you're leading with empathy
Good
and
intentions.
understanding, yeah, as long as, and that's not going to happen 100% of the time, but like as often as you can, and to like know
Totally.
that where it's appropriate and safe to like just bitch and vent and
Hmm.
complain. and then to set that aside and then step back into the regular real world. Um, hopefully like, beyond this shit that you had to vent and
Right.
release to a safe
And that
space.
said too, like authentic is different every day. So like I wake up some days and I feel silly and lighthearted and fantastic. And then those days I might go teach a class that's super silly and fun and lighthearted. And then
Yeah,
sometimes I'm a human. I wake up and I'm grumpy and I have a lot on my mind and I'm having a really hard time in my brain. So I'm not going to necessarily be able to show up and teach in a fun, silly, lighthearted way. I might just barely be able to get the words out, you know? So like it's kind of also important to just remember that like people are allowed to have moods and people are allowed to have
yeah,
days that they're not at their best and they're allowed to not always be like, you know, performing at their peak of what you believe them to be. It's just kind of like it's always a fucking it's a different day. And luckily I'm not out there performing brain surgery. And when I
yeah.
have a bad day, it just means I say a dumb cue and I'm not, you know, flying a plane into the
Big
side of a mountain.
lines. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Hi, buddies. Levi and Denim just joined
Have
the
you ever
chat.
been to a class where you were like fully certain that the teacher was completely full of shit?
Let me think. Hang on.
Okay.
Yes, I have been to a class where the teacher was full of shit because I knew this person. So it was not an energy, like it wasn't like I was reading their energy. I knew this person outside of being a yoga teacher,
Mhm.
and I stepped into their class to support them teaching, and they just like rambled on and on and on about all this fucking shit, and I was just like,
No.
I pull the bullshit card.
Yeah.
And this person didn't remain a yoga teacher for very long.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so I guess that
Rambled on what? Like they were like trying to
just like
heal you spiritually when you
spiritual,
knew.
yeah, just like
Yeah.
spiritual shit that like was
No.
like, so I was like, you're just like, you're like, I don't know, like,
Snake
I
oil
don't like it when
salesman?
someone makes me feel like they know what I need,
I
or like
agree.
they know what's best for me, or
Right.
that like by them going rambling on about this
That
topic
you're they're
that they're
healing you.
changing, yeah, that they're helping me or healing me in any way.
Agreed.
I'm just like, you're just listening to yourself talk,
Yes.
and it's not relatable at all.
That's a big red flag for me too. Like when I go into a class and this teacher is spouting a bunch of shit off, like they are going to fix my entire life in that hour of me being in that room because it's just
Yeah.
not on that if that's
You
not honest. No matter who you are, what kind of day you're having, you're not going to fix my life in this hour and you
you
shouldn't
don't know
have.
what I need.
Exactly. And you shouldn't have, first of all, we're yoga teachers. We're not doctors. We're not therapists. We are not, and this might
I
be
also
controversial. We're not healers. We're
no
leading a yoga class. Like people think, but that's the
moving
thing is
people
like
through their bodies.
there's
Wild.
a lot of people in the yoga world that like consider themselves light workers and
Yeah,
healers and
I
I'm going
can't
to
do
fix
that.
you and it's just kind
Sorry.
of like I'm sorry, but what you are offering and what the space you're holding for me might make my
Is
day.
what it is. It's
Yes.
beneficial.
It's beneficial and it's going to make my day a lot better. It's going to get me through my day in a much more pleasant way than before. But you are not healing me. And I didn't come here to be healed. I
Yeah, I'm
came
not
here.
broken. I don't need fixed.
Exactly. So that's a big red
I
flag for
think
me
another
too.
thing that happened once was a teacher read a quote at the end of class, which happens all the time. I do that. I like to read
Right.
quotes sometimes. They're lovely. But after class, the teacher said to me, Montana, I read that for you. And I was like,
What?
and like, this isn't
Excuse
a
me?
teacher that I really know outside of the yoga studio. So like, they don't know about my life or like what I'm
Right.
going through. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Okay. Thanks.
That just gave me like pulled the curtain back a little bit on how you perceive
Yeah.
me. I'm fine though. Thanks.
Yeah. And thanks for
Making me
making
feel like,
assumptions.
yeah, thanks for letting me know that you don't think I'm fine.
Yeah. Oh, well,
On
hey.
the flip side, oh, remember that one time too? This is another thing that annoys me. May said, and then we'll stop talking about annoying stuff. May said that someone who are not going to use names here, she asked a yoga teacher, "Do you like this yoga teacher's classes? Both of these
Mhm.
yoga teachers are great." And the yoga teacher said, it felt like they were trying to be a yoga teacher. And I was like, yeah, and
Tracks.
you know what? In the beginning, no, not even because I think of like brand new teachers that I'm taking their classes right now for the first time, and none of them make me feel like they're trying to be a yoga teacher. So it's like, just recognize if I've definitely taught classes where I'm sure it felt like I was quote unquote trying to be a yoga teacher. One time for
Right.
the 200 hour, I showed up in my outfit and May said, "You look like you're dressed up as a yoga teacher for Halloween." So again, like I'm not, we neither of us are saying we haven't ever done this before,
Of
but it's like
course.
you don't need to. Like you don't need, goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time is you don't need to try to be anything that you're not. And you don't need to try to be anything that you want to be. Like just be what and who you are and it'll all unfold perfectly. Like a lot of the time when I teach yoga, I'm just like I feel like a fraud. I feel like a
Yeah.
fucking fraud. And
Mhm.
then people will come up. I'm sure people say, behind my back, like that seemed inauthentic or whatever. And then some people will come up and they're like, "How do you have all these things to say? I wish I had a journal. I wish I could write it down." Someone said this to me after my sculpt class today. And I was like, "What the fuck did I say? I'm going to a
It's just
bachelorette party. I have penis straws in my closet right now. Like, what could I have said that you wanted to write down in a journal?"
well,
Anyway,
because there are certain things that sometimes people just really need to hear. And
yeah,
depending on like I think it was I'm not going to name names, but like someone said that to me the one day they're like I feel like sometimes in the beginning of class you are talking directly to me. And like and what I'm usually saying are things that I have going on in my own head, like things that I'm dealing with. So like it
yeah,
feels I can't give words unless I'm like they're
they're
really real
yours.
and current in my head. So
Yeah,
like, if I'm saying anything, it's because I'm either living it or I'm feeling it or I've recently just felt it and it's like current and it's relevant to how I'm doing life right now. Um, and then like so yeah, as much of as a mess I feel like, this woman thinks that the things I say are speaking directly to her and that's great because it's like well
yeah,
me and her must have be going through the same things or and it's just nice to know because like that's something that I've been, insecure about as a yoga teacher. Like I don't always have beautiful words. There are days where I've got nothing. You know what I mean? And I can't create speeches and I can't create like, dharma talks. Like I don't believe in creating like a talk because like that to
prepping
me
your
and maybe it's authentic to others, but to
right.
me it feels inauthentic. So whatever I'm saying is just what's happening and what's real
And
in my head at the time.
you were able to recognize that through going back to what we were talking about before, through trial and error, through
Yes.
reading things off and being
Right.
like, this doesn't work. I'm trying it
Yeah.
on, doesn't fit.
It doesn't
And
work for me. It doesn't feel right to me.
something that Presley always says whenever I'll take her like spin class, I'm like, "You were speaking right to me, weren't you?"
Mhm.
He always says, "What's personal is universal." And
Yeah,
I'm like,
I
yeah,
really love that.
because it's true. Like what you're talking about, you're saying it because you're experiencing it. And
Yeah.
that's how other people, not everyone, but that's how
Right.
other people can feel seen and validated because like no one's going through something totally unique that no one else is going through it at the same time,
Exactly. And that's a really
especially
cool
when we're talking
reminder.
broad about it in a yoga
Yeah.
class.
Yeah. That's my favorite thing that reminds me is like as weird or, whatever's going on in my head, as weird or alone as I might feel in it, if it lands on 3, 4 people that are feeling the exact same way, it's just a nice reminder that like what we're going through, it's unique to us, but also isn't like we're not alone. Like we all feel and experience similar things, maybe at different times, but like we can all relate to each other much more than we could ever know. And
Yeah.
so that's why, when I hear a teacher speaking from a place that feels real, I feel it, like, my I get goosebumps, like, I
Same.
feel it like, I can feel it absorb into my body, and when I am laying there listening to a teacher that it sounds like they've planned something to say to sound significant, it doesn't land at all. I'm just like, "Can we get on with it?" You know? And I know that's not everybody's experience, but it's mine. I just feel like I know when a teacher is being real because I feel their words, like, almost physically, like, they
Yeah,
land on me,
I
and it's
I feel
nice.
that.
There was one fitness, endeavor that was wildly red flag to me. Um, I always went to this same class, not even gonna say the day or the time, but I had been going for weeks and weeks, and it was usually the same group, and, like, it was usually really, really high energy, and I remember it was, like, the dead of winter, and for maybe, like, 2, 3 weeks in a row, the energy of the class was just in the dumps, you know? And I was
Yeah.
a student. I wasn't teaching it. I was the student, but I could feel the energy was off, whatever. The teacher fucking stops the music in the middle of
No.
class and goes, "Guys, I really need your energy right now. I don't know what's going on with you, but like your energy gives me energy. And so I don't know what's happening." And, and she went off on this whole long thing. I know you're, it was, and this was so before I ever started to teach.
You didn't even
So
know,
I
you
didn't
just knew.
I know, I mean, I knew, but also, like, thinking about me now, like, stopping the music in the middle of yoga and being like, "You guys, your energy is just off today."
Which is
I would die. And so she went on, like, she took about 7 minutes of our 1 hour of paid class time to give us essentially what felt like a lecture about, how she needs our energy. And in my head the whole time, I was just like,
what the
we're
fuck?
not here for you. You're here for us. You are here to create the space. You are here to provide the energy. Like, and it was just in my head, I was just like, I could not believe she did that. And that to me was like probably the ultimate red flag in any fitness experiences I've ever had. And also the one teacher kind of just started going off on like, she turned class into kind of like a sermon rather than like you
Mm,
know, motivational banter or like relevant topics for a normal person. It was like I was in church and like it or love it. I'm sure some people loved it, but like for
right.
me, that's not my jam. So I was like, what is happening? This is yoga. Like this is not Sunday morning at church. I'm sorry, it's just
My
not.
parents are
But
forcing me to
yeah.
go to.
Yeah.
Well, let's let's finish this conversation with opposites, with experiences we've
Oh,
had
yes. Let's
recently where a teacher has been where you've been like, fuck yeah, you get it, girl or
it
boy or
landed.
person. So mine
Okay.
is from last night. I went and took Laurel Constantino's class. Laurel is a Mount Lebanon, um, born and raised Mount Lebanon girl. She teaches at Yoga Flow and just started teaching at Yoga 6. And I went and took her sculpt class. And Yoga 6, for those of you that don't know, has a very specific way of teaching. We have language that we use, formatting that we use, sequencing techniques that we use, lights that we use, music, camera, action. But anyways, Laurel is a fantastic yoga teacher, and she's diving into a whole new modality of teaching the sculpt format, of having a microphone on, of
Hmm.
creating playlists that's like not for a classic vinyasa studio, but for like fucking jumping jacks. And it, I was like, the way that she was able to like take all these tools and, for lack of a better term, like requirements and expectations that are expected from a yoga 6 teacher. It was the third sculpt class that she's taught. She's had 2 weeks off because she was out of town for her birthday. And the whole time, she was just the epitome of like not giving a fuck about being perfect and
Hmm.
just being herself in the best way that she knew how in that moment. Like, for example, at one point we were doing cardio, it was one of the first cardios, and she was like, "This song just isn't doing it. We're gonna skip." And she just like moved, like went to the next song in her playlist. And I was like, "Yeah."
Fuck
And then,
yeah.
yeah. And then like at the end, it happened one more time. Like her cool down song came on like just a few seconds, whatever, like a minute too early. And she was like, nope, not ready for that song. Click and like change it. And it's not that like, here's the kicker. Like she after class, I was like, that was amazing. That was yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And she was like, the playlist. She was like, I need to figure out the playlist situation. And I was like, yeah, you will. Reason I bring that up is it's not that she was just like, fuck it, free for all, she recognized like, what can I do in this now moment to create the energy that I want to create? That's skipping to the next song. Do I want it? Is that ideal? No, it's not ideal. Am I going to work on it for next time? Yes, I'm going to work on it for next time. But like, she didn't miss a beat.
Yep.
I got my ass kicked. It
Yeah.
was so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, we were sweating bullets. It was just, she played that song, looking for a man in finance. What's the, I can never think of the
I
looking
don't
for
know
a
the
man
name
in
of it.
finance. Trust fund.
Six
Six
foot
five,
four.
blue
Yeah.
eyes. Yeah,
I know
finance.
exactly what you're
Trust
talking
fund.
about.
6'5", blue eyes. And we were in cardio and we were doing like high knees, I think. And before the song came on, I like right before the song came on, I like put my arms up. I don't know why. I just wanted to put my arms up. And she's like, "Oh, I love that, Montana. Like, if anyone else put their arms up, put their arms up." And then that song came on. She was like, "Ooh, raise your hand if you're looking for a man in finance." And then she like jumped down really quick and got in like a small little ball. I think because she was like looking at her notes, but she like jumped down. She's like, "I got a man in sales, so I'm putting both my hands down." And I was just like, yes, I fucking love you. Let's go.
I
So
had a
that's
similar experience in her class. It was very natural and
God,
very like, and she's new at it. And, I would never know she's new at it.
yeah.
And there were a couple, like, points where, like, like, small things, like, she forgot one thing on one side, and then she's like, "You know, guys, I'm kind of realizing we didn't do this one thing. Let's go back and do it." And we're like, "Yeah." But I love that she doesn't let it tank the entire, like, "Oh my god, I forgot this thing. Oh my god, I'm gonna, like, fuck everything up. Oh my god." It's just like,
I'm making a meme out of the face you just made. I don't know
"Please
what it's
don't.
I won't, I
Please
won't.
don't."
Oh my God, you guys.
Well, you know what I mean, those teachers that are like,
Yes.
"Oh my god, I forgot one thing on one side, the world is gonna fucking
Oh, go
end."
back.
It's just
Oh,
like,
I can't find it.
"Relax,
Oh.
dude, relax. It's no
Yeah.
one's dying in here today. Everyone's having a good time." She doesn't take herself too seriously, and
Yeah.
she 100%. I took her sculpt, the second one, not the first one she taught, but
Okay.
the second one, and I felt the same exact way. I was like, "She is going to fucking kill this," and she did. It was hard, it was fun. She was herself, and I had a really good time being in the space that she was creating, and I really, really enjoyed it for sure. Um, I think, you know, I've had so many wonderful experiences in yoga in general. I
That's why I was like,
really
my most
always like,
recent last
yeah,
night.
my yeah. Yeah, like, well, that's cool though. Trying to think like the most authentic situation I've ever been in terms of someone teaching a class, or just like classes where I've enjoyed myself. And I really just think I always really love Kaja's class because
Oh,
she's always like authentically in her own energy, and her own energy is just very like gentle and soft and calm, but at the same time like you are moving, you're working, it's hard, you're sweating, and like everything she says, like she has beautiful cues because she's a physical therapist and she just knows the body so well, and it seems so effortless for her. And it just I
I
just
fucking love
she's
Kasha.
always coming from an honest place, and you can feel it, and I
Always.
love that.
She's
Yeah.
so honest. She is so
I also
authentic.
really loved Haley's classes, like, she always
Also
drops
so
these little jokes here and there, like, she'll fall out of stuff in front of everybody and just, like, crack a joke about it, like, she doesn't give a shit, and I
yeah.
love that, like, some of my favorite experiences being a student of yoga is watching the teacher in humbling moments where they can, like, be silly about it, and it's
Mm,
just,
yeah.
it gives permission, and it creates an honest environment where, nobody is harsh on themselves if they fall out of something, because, like,
Yeah.
God forbid. God
Yeah.
forbid your back toe falls down in warrior 3, like, oh my God. So the teachers that
You're
are able
bad at
to
yoga.
yeah, exactly. The teachers that are able to just openly, like, fall out of shit, they don't care, and, like, they're not putting on a show.
I
It's
made
great.
everyone giggle on Monday in my 10:30 class, and I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast, but like I'm not a jokester when it comes to teaching yoga. When I try to be silly, I'm like, oh, that was not authentic. But I did it on accident. I like had everyone doing this. It was during the dynamic warrior flow, so but they had already done it 3 times or 4 times or 6 times or whatever. And so they were like in a low lunge, and for 6 times they inhale, reach your arms up. And all I said was, inhale, step your front foot back. And like every single person put their arms up because they were just like
Mhm.
moving it like they did.
Autopilot.
I said, and I was just standing at the front of the room and I went, gotcha. And everyone started laughing. And I was like, I said something funny on
You're like,
accident.
"I
Is
made a
that what it
joke."
feels like? And then I was like, child's pose. Like I like glitched. I was like, I don't know what to do now. You all giggled. Child's
You're
pose.
like, "I'm basically Pete Davidson up here, just
Yeah.
riffing."
I was gonna say I'm basically May, but I'm so happy you just said Pete Davidson. Way more basically Pete Davidson. Um, all right. Well, these are officially not going to be short, so who are we
Yeah,
kidding?
well, what can you do?
Any other final thoughts you want to share?
No, actually, because I have to take a shower and take Maya somewhere, so
Hey. All right. Well, um, thanks, May. And
thanks,
thanks to all of our
Montana.
listeners. And let us know
Yeah,
what you think about authenticity. Because it's just the best. It's the only way. It's the only way. All right.
I agree. Like and
Peace.
subscribe. Tee
Yeah. Leave a review, share with your friends. Bye.
Bye.